So I won't spend too much time on introductions. I'm Deval Pandya. I'm Vice President of AI Engineering at Vector. I have the privilege of working with a bunch of our researchers and all of you in accelerating the adoption of latest research through application. And we have a very impressive panel. Everyone has seen various aspects of AI, but most importantly, within this group, they have realized, if not billions, at least hundreds of millions of real ROI from AI as a technology. And so we don't want to miss their insights on this. I would like to welcome Azeen, who leads machine learning teams for Georgian partners. She has a background in research in computer vision, and they help their portfolio companies adopt AI rapidly. We have Dr. Ian. He's the chief scientist for Deloitte. He works with various organizations at all different levels, comes from a deep research background, including positions at CERN, and has seen various implementations. I would also like to welcome Rod. Rod is the engineering leader at Cohere, and it's safe to say, like, he and his team have done some amazing work at engineering the implementations of LLMs and beyond language models, both internally and externally for their partners. And last but not the least, we have Max, who is Senior Vice President for AI and Head of AI at TD. And he and his team have been helping TD to be at the cutting edge of AI. He's also Dr. Hinton's student and has done, obviously, various patents. But the most impressive is like 3 Rexes. I don't think it has it ever happened again? Has someone, not to our knowledge, right? So that is very, very impressive. Thanks for joining us.
Come on.
So maybe let's just dive into it. I think the question which I think is on the top of a lot of our minds is, we see these 2 different narratives. We are seeing AI native, AI first startups or organizations who are bridging the gap between latest research and application within days. And on the other hand, we are seeing large organizations or even other startups who are struggling to go from POC to production at scale, like machine learning systems. What are you seeing, and what are some of the unique challenges there? Maybe start with like Max.
Hi, everyone. Is it working?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having us. So, of course, being at a large bank, over 100,000 employees, we have our own challenges with, with platforms, with data, with how fast we can deploy systems. And then, of course, risk and governance are key for us. We're a highly regulated institution. We need to ensure that we deploy AI in a safe and responsible way. But what I've seen over time is, especially since the explosion of Gen AI, is things have been accelerating. So to give you an example, we took our first Gen AI use case live last year. And what we had to do is actually bring the teams that we had to kind of rely on to take this use case end-to-end from an ideation to an actual live deployment. We had them in the room, so it was everyone from data, from platforms, from IT, from legal, from compliance, from business, from us. Everybody was actually in the same war room, ensuring that we can unlock all the barriers and take this use case end-to-end. So we started an ideation session in January of last year. We had a system that we were happy with in terms of accuracy and the governance framework around this in the summer, and then we went live in September. So I think for a bank of our size, that's record time, and that kind of sets a template for how we're going to do these types of use cases in the future. And this is all, I think, because people are starting to really realize that we're in a new era, and we really have to adapt. And I think that's an exciting future going forward.
Thanks, Max. Ian, is this an anomaly, or do you see this happening with every single Fortune 500 company you work with?
Is getting a use case into production in 6 months an anomaly? Yeah, it is. And I would say, and without no disrespect to Max, who I've known for years, that's not good enough. Right? The number of use cases that people are trying to push out of the door with Gen AI, with its accessibility, is in the hundreds. We can't do things the way that we've done them. I will say that where I've seen stuff work, and actually this is what's depressing to me, is it's often been having a CTO or a CEO who's pushing through all the barriers to get this stuff through. That can't be the answer, right? There are so many barriers to adoption. There's a ton of demand. And saying, oh, like some big personality is going to push it through, it can't be the way forward. Like Canada was what, 4th a couple years ago in AI adoption. We're now 8th. There's, I think it was like 36% of like companies worldwide are going to put AI into production. Canada's like 24. Like we've got the research, we've got the people, we've got the talent, but we don't have the ambition, right? So anyway, that's a bit of a strong statement, but like we can do it, but we're just not pushing hard enough.
Yeah, Rod, like you work with like a lot of companies, but also I think Cohere has been super effective in even in like building the community, not just a top down, but like almost like grassroots, like ground up, like innovation, which gets adopted. Like, what do you see is the difference between that versus like a large organization?
Yeah, maybe I'll talk a little bit about it more like tactical, more small in detail once we are in a customer's environment. What we see is, there's often, it's not to say that in a negative way, but there's often the people that just say no, as like their first reaction is to just say no to something. So it's like, oh, I want to get this done, no. And, oh, have you thought about our SOC 2 scope and blah, blah, blah. And so really, I think aligning incentives with the people that say no and the people that actually, their jobs is really to mitigate risk and it's a very important job, etc. Is really to get them in the same room and align incentives. It's like, if we don't do this, maybe I'm exaggerating, but if we don't do this, 6 months from now, we all don't have a job. I think it's important to realign incentives here. And what we see, there's from a technical standpoint, there's all kinds of things that also still need to be solved. Data fragmentation, data is everywhere. All about, kind of like translating from academic benchmarks to actual use case benchmarks. One thing that's interesting is that, for example, in one of our customers, what we've seen is, for a specific use case that they were fine-tuning with, they really wanted grounded, factual answers. It had to be like perfect, no hallucination, etc. But the more they worked at it, the better the scores for that for that use case, so they can deploy it to prod. The worst the model was doing on academic benchmarks. So that's another example of like less emphasis on academic benchmarks and like kind of what wows people in terms of just non-enterprise use cases. And then finally, enabling the right people in the company, because it might not be the traditional folks that you expect. It might not be the product engineering teams that have worked on feature X in the past. It might be someone from customer support. It might be someone from QA. For the first time ever with this technology, we're really enabling everyone to do much, much more, much differently and much faster.
That makes so much sense. Azeen, you work with startups. I'm sure like Georgian invested in the most ambitious startups, so I don't think ambition is an issue with the people you work with. What are the unique challenges where you see? How are they adopting this? Like, you have AI native startups, but you have also startups who are now starting to adopt AI to transform their business. What are you seeing there?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, we actually don't see ambitions being the problem in our case, but I think in the most successful examples I've seen, there is usually a very clear business case that sort of glue together the investment and the business side, R&D side, and all other stakeholders. So there is a lot of clarity around what the team is going to achieve. There is usually a champion, as Ian mentioned, and as Max mentioned, like just having everyone in the room and ensuring that there is alignment between everyone about what we are going to achieve and what the project and what's the goal of building the solution. I think another basically thing I've seen to be very helpful is basically starting simple and having a lot of iterations to improve the product, while involving customers or someone with domain expertise in the process as soon as possible. Because with generative AI, everything is moving faster. It's accelerating the development process and deployment process. So you wanted to ensure that you're getting real feedback so that you can tailor the product as soon as possible for the customer's need and make something that people actually and really love. So I think In our case, usually with what we have seen, I think the challenge is making a clear case, ensuring there's alignment between everyone, and really staying focused on it. Because generative AI is bringing so much opportunities to the scene. So really thinking very strategically about what to build versus what to buy and where to allocate the resources, and staying focused, making sure everyone is in the loop, everyone is on the same page. I think that's been really the key in successful examples I've seen.
Yeah, so I think we are hearing like we need focus, we need buy-in at all different levels, we need the right technology, right mindset for like practical approaches. Maybe what are some of the two-in-one question here? So for Max, like what are some of the patterns which are, say, design patterns or even like policies which are very unique to TD, which has enabled the success? And for others, you work with like multiple organizations. So what are some of the patterns or techniques or like processes which you can say, oh, these are the things which most of the successful organizations do, and it's so much similar in those cases?
So a big aspect for us, and I think like Rod also touched on this, was to make sure that our research environment aligns with our deployment environment. And kind of it starts with data. So what we found is that research benchmarks on public data sets didn't really transfer to our internal evaluation. We found that our documents are generally longer. It did have bank-specific acronyms. So we kept improving kind of, in terms of our evaluation on the public data sets, and then saw that there was a big gap in how that transfers kind of internally. So we had to align our research environment to really baseline off of our own data. And I think the other factor which is largely specific to kind of Gen AI is the human evaluation aspect of it. So for the more classic kind of use cases where we would ship like regression or classification models, they would just go into the business logic and never really impacted, this human AI interaction. For Gen AI, we're now shipping these assistants where our employees are actually talking to the system. So ensuring that there's a human satisfaction in these AI assistants, and that we actually do not just these offline kind of evaluations, but also live human evaluation, get the feedback and kind of refine off of that, has been critical for us. And so this set up a pipeline for us where we now have a big collection of our internal documents. They're labeled. And then we have this pipeline of how we build the systems. We ensure that our colleagues try them. And then we have this iterative refinement before they go live. That has really enabled us to accelerate the use cases, but also get to a much better accuracy and usability of these systems.
Makes sense. Rod?
Yeah. I think with everything that Max is saying, it shows that there's a model that works, which is, hey, let's do some kind of centralization for a couple of the most wanted use cases, instead of having every product engineering team reinvent the wheel every time and do their own evals, do their own experimentation, et cetera, et cetera. And so, kind of like the most common use cases, summarization, document Q&A, like chatting with the document, maybe re-ranking, like search results, et cetera. Like there's a couple of use cases like that, tool use and agentic use, where you have a central team that's well invested in, has the agency to really drive forward these capabilities, and they become, hey, me as a company now, as an enterprise, I have these capabilities. Any other product engineering team that wants to use it, or any other team that wants to use it, here you go, here's the API, go nuts. Is really, really important to have. But also you want to enable the types of ideas that, with maybe a more simple interface, simple endpoint that, maybe has a little bit more, allows you to do things outside of that box, so that you can have these next ideas come to life that aren't yet adopted. And,
Got it. So what I'm hearing is, say, having some sort of a centralized COE kind of a model where all of this like tech stack, know-how, but then also providing room for like sandbox where people can innovate like on their own. That makes a lot of sense. Like Ian.
So a couple of things. One is, I think, like at a high level, what people are saying is you kind of need a product mindset, right? Which, and I think we should also we should differentiate between where people report and how they work, right? Like I don't think, you need to have people all reporting to a central team, but I think they need to work in a coordinated fashion. I think most people would agree. And just to give you an example around, like, so product mindset, what does that like really mean? So we're all using, you know, because generative AI is like really exciting, but it's also like not super accurate. So we're all using like breaking down tasks into like agentic workflows, mostly honestly because of the limitations of generative AI right now. But those little pieces, like if you're doing a conversation, you just have a bot that understands, like if the context of the conversation has changed, like you can reuse that. So this whole product mindset is like, okay, I build all these little agents, I centrally manage like stuff that's built, and I make sure that people reuse it, like at an enterprise level, like that's super important. Another example is because of the limitations of generative AI, we're using a lot of reinforcement learning now. And you know, with human feedback, red teaming with like machines, like all of that stuff, that capability should not be built like in every little LOB, right? Like, okay, what vendors am I going to use to do red teaming? What vendors am I going to use to reinforcement learning? Like that needs to be, the platform needs to be organized and the way of working needs to be organized. And so you're talking about like patterns of the future. I think reinforcement learning is going to be big, and I think like we need to sort of build an enterprise capability around it.
Azin?
Sure. So basically echoing everything that the other panelists said, it's hard. I'm realizing it's hard to go after, you know, Max, Jan, and Rodrigo. So, but I think maybe just highlighting a couple of points. I think it's really important to double down on data quality and evaluation, as Max and Rodrigo mentioned, and also Jan, like making sure there is a solid foundation for data and not just like, you know, your initial data, but also a solid foundation to keep collecting feedback from your customers and incorporating that feedback properly to your product and making it, you know, continuously adding to the differentiation and customizing your product. And I guess like I just wanted to also mention that like I've seen a lot of companies doing that for the first iterations of their product, but not like sort of like dropping the ball after some point and not continuously doing it. And I believe like that's where the most value exists today, you know, with like when it comes to really building a differentiated product, but also like ensuring that there is a human in the loop, an expert to help with the evaluation, because that's really important for building a specifically generative AI products. I don't think the evaluation benchmarks today are sufficient or, you know, insightful enough to actually ship a product to the production system without having a human involved. And just lastly, I kind of feel like ensuring that you're fostering a culture of innovation and rapid prototyping, because the field is moving very fast. So it's important to constantly look for new innovations, updating your product, you know, bringing the new technologies into your tech stack, and enabling every individual on the team to, you know, to basically contribute and do their best work without interruptions and barrier. I think those are some of the patterns, like basically we've seen working with like a lot of startups at different stages, I would say.
Yeah, thanks. I do want to be mindful of time, so maybe like a very rapid response question here. What was something that you believed 3 years ago, which you don't believe at all right now, or the other way around? What was something that you did not believe, you 100% believe right now is the right way of doing things? I can start like, before joining Vector, I used to believe that the best way of creating real impact at scale in enterprise was just horizontal scaling of models. You'll have hundreds of thousands of models, and that whole paradigm has shifted now, right, kind of thing. I'll start with you, Azin, like, you know, so that you don't have to go last.
Okay. Yeah, that's actually a good question. Like, if you were asking me 3 years ago if it's possible to ship a legitimate product in like 4 to 6 months, I would have probably said something like no, or maybe. But today, I mean, we're actually seeing that's actually happening. Like, we're seeing a lot of even bigger organizations shipping product in a very fast pace. And it's actually like, I think to me that's one of the biggest like and most exciting observations, because there are a lot of tools like Cursor AI, you know, Replit, that technical and non-technical people can use to actually build product in such a fast pace and in very basically short amount of time. That's, you know, for Azin 3 years ago, I think I wouldn't imagine, like, it's kind of surprising to me. Like, if I go back, I mean, that's one of the most exciting changes.
Rod, you want to go next?
I'll go. I'll be quick, but I'm going to do two that are related. Okay. So, and this the first one hurts. If somebody said citizen data scientist like 3 years ago, I was like, give me a break. And now you're starting to see like innovation happen at the edge. And on a related point, which also hurts, I've seen in the implementations we're doing where I'd have 5 data scientists and a couple of engineers. Like, I'm using a lot more AI engineers and far fewer data scientists, right? So it's a big shift.
I'm gonna state it. It's like super obvious, but I just want to remind people 3 years ago where we were. I think 3 years ago, everyone thought, oh, NLP is just about topic modeling, classification, but you don't hear that at all anymore. Maybe 0.5%. I don't know. Like if we were to compare, like
Who uses NLP?
yeah. So that's the obvious one. And there's a second one that was really important. Oh my God. I'll let Max go and then come back to it.
We can come back.
So since this is the panel about research, so 3 years ago, I actually thought that research can kind of exist on its own, and then build applications that would then scale into products. With GenAI, we just saw that there is such a deep integration into the business now that you really have to have an integrated approach. So we really ensure that our research team is actually very well integrated into the businesses now. And I also never thought that half of my job would be prompt engineering, and our scientists are complaining a lot about it, but that's kind of the new ML science, I think, is prompt.
That's awesome.
I remembered it. I remembered. So, sorry, I just had twins, so sleep has been very. So one thing, I'm trying to formulate it the best way possible. When ChatGPT came out, everyone was like,
we were doing so good. I had a bet going on that we will not mention ChatGPT in the entire panel.
But everyone was saying the age of privacy and security is dead. No one cares about it. If we want to move fast, you shouldn't care about it. But I think the opposite is so true now. Like the opposite needs to happen, and it's so true. It's really important that privacy and security is in the back of people's minds, is in the KPIs for whether or not your product feature is successful or not. And a couple of maybe like a year ago, it was like, oh, you need to have it all done on some kind of public cloud, and it needs to be, we shouldn't care about data anymore and all of that. But things are shifting back towards no. We can run these models. We can run these models on edge. We can run these models on our own servers, or on our own on-prem, or in dedicated instances wherever they are. And it's very, very important that the data doesn't leak. It's very important that the data doesn't exit the cluster, etc.
Very cool. So last question. It has to be only one sentence. What is on top of your wish list that if this was available today, it would just accelerate research to application like drastically? One thing. I know we have talked about benchmarks, data sets, so I think we cannot say benchmarks and data sets anymore. Who wants to go first? Oh.
Maybe I can plug in Cohere.
That's a great plug. That's a great plug.
If everyone had access to Cohere models, then you could do it all in private.
Actually, let me just jump onto that. I was debating whether I was going to say anything or not. It'd be hard. It's hard to be here and not think of the political situation. I think we need compute capacity in Canada. Even when I deal with cloud providers, it's 6 months from now you'll get these H100s or whatever, and then so I think as a nation we have to solve access to compute fast sooner rather than later.
Max, Azim, anyone?
So to echo Ian's comments, the first thing that came to mind, if I had 100,000 GPUs, I would be so much faster. But I think like in fairness, just a very integrated environment where I can experiment and take those experiments live much faster than what we have kind of available right now. I think that would be my biggest vision.
Yeah, I was actually, I'm gonna echo Max. I think,
No echoing, like,
okay.
this is a very,
yeah, but
like,
I guess, like, I mean, even, I guess from what I've seen, if we had more integrated, basically, tech stack and environment, that would have definitely helped, because even a lot of the generative AI tools and platforms we use today, they change on a daily basis. When I'm thinking about, oh, whether should I use this tool or package in my repository or in our work, I'm like, do I actually need it? Can I actually rely on the repository? Like, I think if there was a way to just integrate, pick tools, platforms without worrying about like what's going to happen in 6 months, do I need to remove this dependency entirely from my work? That would have been really nice, and also a way to just stay on top of what's happening. Like, I hear about a platform that didn't exist like 2 months ago, and everyone is already and all of a sudden using it. I'm like, oh wow, should we actually integrate it into our solution or not? That's been a little challenging to stay on top of. So I think if there was a solution, that would.
I did say one sentence, but I'll take it. We have time for one question, maybe two maximum. I see your hand there.
Can I
So,
add
yeah.
just something to what
Sure,
Ian
go
was
for it.
saying? I think we have a very, very unique opportunity here right now for Canada specifically. You know, when you think about how fast was an integration that you've done inside of company, transformation that you've done inside the company, and you think about what was the ingredient, what was part of it, what was the ingredient that made it successful, it's always being close by. It's always being physically next to each other. It's always been, in the same room. And that's when most things get done. And we have a very unique opportunity where there's so much good Canadian-made services and unique opportunity where, hey, you know what, look locally, can you have those folks in the office, can you work together and co-develop together when needed?
That was my closing remark. Like, that's what we strive to do here at Vector. I think we want to bring all of us together. I think we have all the ingredients here to succeed, but I completely agree, like magic happens when people come together in physical spaces and virtual spaces together. We have one question.
Hi, thanks for the panel. I'm just curious, nobody referred to quantum computing or quantum computer. In your organization, are you planning to have that in the near future? I don't know, what is your vision about that? Because if it's come, it's revolutionized and it's very awesome, like AI or machine learning.
I'm going to go first because I'm a physicist. I don't see that a useful quantum computer is around the corner. Like the decoherence is a real problem. And so, like, as exciting as it is to talk about it, like, I don't see a practical application except for maybe cryptography in the next little while. But, you know, if people have a different opinion, like, go ahead.
We also have a physics team in Layer 6, and we're actively kind of evaluating applications of quantum for AI. And so far, the consensus has been similar, that it's not really around the corner. So it's not something that we are looking to implement imminently, but we're staying on top of it and trying to stay current with all the advances.
Yeah, I guess same on our side. We've been working closely with like Xanadu, because that's one of the companies in Georgian's portfolio company. They're making, you know, I think there are a lot of great progress that's been made in that field, but it seems more like long-term initiative, but I mean, a very exciting one. Because I can imagine how that can change a lot of things when it comes to training large models, like, so a very exciting longer-term sort of initiative, I think.
I am hopeful that there'll be breakthroughs so we don't have to throw thousands of H100s at every problem, right? So that compute won't be the limiting factor. Like, we're not there yet, like, we all understand that, but it's kind of disappointing that we have to spend that much energy to build these models, and I'm hoping there'll be some, like, you know, as a grad student, you know, we were running through pretty large data sets, like we collect a terabyte a day, and the computers were less powerful than my phone, right? So I'm hoping we can not just throw more compute at it, but hope's not a strategy.
All right, thanks everyone for staying back. Lunch is served, and thank you for sharing your insights. I do agree, I want to echo that we have a unique opportunity here. I think Canada has everything that's necessary to lead in AI. We need to be more ambitious, but also we need to start finding ways of working together so that we are not just replicating each other. Thanks everyone.